Hey guys, I'm going to be making today's video on evangelizing to the atheist, and I'm making this video to help equip the saints with what to say and what to do with atheism, because I find that many Christians kind of get flabbergasted on the amount of pure disrespect and ignorance on the side of the atheist, and the Christian themselves doesn't really know much about their side of the argument. So what either comes out of it is the Christian being silent or just spouting Bible verses at the opposition, which power to them, but I don't think that's an effective or productive way to evangelize to somebody.
And I would agree, that certainly is a poor method. But no more than starting your video with the assertion that the reason Christians fail is because atheists are ignorant, right before you go on to claim that many Christians don't know how to defend their position. Your attempt to project theistic inability onto the non-believer falls flat when you make such a mistake. I mean, how is our ignorance supposedly a detriment to apologetics? Surely if we had little knowledge on the topics being discussed, we'd be bowled over and dazzled by even the lowliest of apologists, no matter how poor their arguments. By the way, when I say the lowliest of apologists, I am taking your notion of a hierarchy. My notion of lowliest of apologists includes them all, for I have never seen such a thing as high-hanging apologetics. But perhaps you can dazzle me today and change my mind.
From my personal experience, that evangelism that works the best is when you use their viewpoint against them. Is when you take what they believe and then show them it in a different light. And sometimes Christians find fault in this, and they say, well, you shouldn't need to do all that. You should just be able to speak the truth. But every time you plant the seed, if you don't dig up the dirt around it, the seed will most likely die. And I think that's very true with the gospel. I mean, you could go throwing seeds everywhere, and yeah, maybe a couple of the seeds will take up, but if you dig in the ground and you break up that soil, and then you plant the seed in there and you cover it back up with dirt, it's much more likely to grow, okay?
I'm sorry, but the seeds of doubt are kind of the trademark of the critical atheist. Now, I'm not exactly sure how you intend to internally critique all non-theistic perspectives in a single video, since not all atheists share the same philosophies. We have a great deal of variety. What may work for a philosophical Buddhist most likely won't work for the secular humanist. If you're going to simply structure a straw-manned idea of an atheist, you're gonna have a rough time.
So with this video, I'm hopefully giving you a shovel so that you could thoroughly dig up the floor and then properly plant the seed. It doesn't mean that this is going to work every time. It doesn't mean that at all. What it does mean is this will efficiently destroy the foundation of naturalistic atheism that many people where I grew up believed in.
Naturalistic atheism? I take that to mean any atheist group which accepts science as the basis upon which our beliefs as to whether something exists or not are philosophically fought over and justified. Fair game. Keep to that and let us see what you have to offer.
So, I'm going to lay out a list of questions, and then I'm going to explain to you why this works, why this argument works, okay? You ask them, you say, are you a logical person?
I view myself to be beyond average in my work, considering that I reference each and every one of my assertions where necessary. There are many who do not go to such troubles to have a conversation and instead will rely on their say as if said say had any weight in discussion. If that's what you mean by logical, then sure. If you actually mean, are you a flawless human being, then no. I can't say that I am. I've certainly erred before. I mean, I was once Christian, for example, but I improved upon my flaws.
Okay. Now make sure you set this up so it's not you just running up to the atheist and saying, are you a logical person? Okay, because that looks highly unsuave. Okay? What you need to do is when you're preaching or you're evangelizing somebody else, and when that annoying objection or atheist comes where they just blatantly just make fun of God just for the kicks, and you know they're an atheist, you ask them, are you a logical person? And they'll obviously say yes, because there's nothing more logical than atheism. Or at least that's what goes on in their head.
What does more logical mean? I've not heard that random phrasing, so I don't understand the air quotes you are using. Who are you quoting? Is it someone specific or just a straw-manned other? I mean, atheism, or an absence of belief in God, is merely the answer to a single question. I fail to see how that answer can be more or less logical than any other scientifically or philosophically supported answer about any other aspect of reality. But when it comes to the question itself, the question of God, it's not simply more logical than the belief in God, but is in fact the only logical position, since it's the only scientifically and philosophically valid one to go. There stands to date no evidence or argument for God which demonstrates their existence beyond the reaches of extreme doubt, let alone reasonable doubt. Belief in God isn't second place runner-up. It never had a place in the race to begin with.
Then you tell them, so you believe everything is a product of random mutation, something even as complex as your own brain?
No. I believe everything, as you specifically asked, is the result of a myriad of processes too numerous to count. Yes, among them we have mutations which, at a conscious level, like that of a human being, could be classed as random. Yet it is these random mutagenic events which are then fed into, processed and ordered by the law of natural selection. You see, chaos on repeat has the habit of forming order. It's the observed fact of nature in how the root feature of every equilibrium ever observed on Earth or anywhere else in the observable universe is disorder. Water dripping from a cave roof is random and disorganized, but given time will form brilliant structures that amaze all. And the slightest changes can result in system collapse, complete chaos and turmoil, if you will. So this is exactly what we see, a build-up of order from chaos by putting chaos on repeat. No magic involved whatsoever.
And they'll undoubtedly say yes.
No, they won't. If they're like myself, they'll explain to you how your reductionist understanding of science does not limit their perspective. Just because you fail to grasp a complex and multi-layered scientific or naturalistic perspective that takes into account many influencing forces does not mean the same is true for us. Do you remember what I said earlier about straw men? Well, you've already begun to fill the trousers, so you're well on your way.
And to that, after they said yes, just pause. Doesn't need to be a long pause, but give them a second to digest what they've just said. Because effectively, they just already stepped in the grave for you. They've already digged their grave, and they don't even know it. So make sure you give them a moment so they could remember what they just said in the next 5 seconds. Then you ask them, so you believe that random chance has designed a perfectly logical brain?
No. I believe perceived randomness had a role to play, but it certainly wasn't a one-person show. Order offered by reasonably equalized systems which moderated rampant chaos also played a substantial part in how less logical brains, remembering how logic is one's ability to perceive reality, decreases a species' chances of survival. Now, for animals reliant on base cognitive functions, this comes in the form of a basic perception, i.e. the ability to differentiate between, say, a potential predator and a shrub. But once you reach a species which has its survival based on social interaction and inventiveness, logic evolves in relation to that. I will hold my hands up and say there are times where being illogical helps, such as when facing a severe emotional burden. But there are times where it's also a great detriment, such as religion stealing resources which could be put to bettering people's lives. But all that's pretty irrelevant to what we have, which is not, as you put it, a perfectly logical brain. We're not born with much of the apparatus needed for deeper thought. Instead, we spend an average of between 16 and 18 years teaching many of these skills day in, day out, and people continue to learn to the very day they die. We suffer delusions, mental illness, and, yes, unsubstantiated superstitions, which, for no apparent reason, teach us to be cruel to our fellow human beings on woefully arbitrary points. The mind is not perfect, but it's what we have, and therefore it's what we make do with. Were it perfect, there would be no religion.
And if they have any clue about them, they're going to say, no, the brain isn't perfectly logical. There's a lot of flaws in it. Okay? And after they say, no, the brain is not perfectly logical, there's a lot of issues with our brain. We make emotional decisions. If the brain is not perfectly logical, then there is no way of knowing what we know is true, or if it's perspective.
No, there are some things which I can know with absolute certainty, such as the fact that I exist in some form, regardless of what form that is. But you are correct that the human species is fallible. It can be wrong, as history testifies. That's why we spend so much money on things like education. Or at least, advanced cultures do so, and that's an act I as a humanist stand behind 100%. You see, the admission that one could be wrong is not an admission that one is wrong. All it actually means is that we have to create systems such as peer review, the statistical p-value, and many other features of science which ensure that the chances of us being wrong are decreased to such an extent that we can hold a position without resorting to intellectual dishonesty.
Okay. At this point, they're probably squealing in their boots saying, oh man, I messed up big time. Because what they've just admitted is that their perspective of reality is not in line with the objective view that they claim that they have.
How? I've just noted that we've developed objective safety measures to overcome many of our subjective qualities. Note subjective qualities as in an aspect of our mind rather than its totality. Just because I acknowledge issues can occur doesn't make that the entirety of the human mind, and doesn't make it some chaotic mess we cannot trust, ever. We have the capacity for objective observation, said observation being necessary for basic survival. If, when we see a line, we perceive a shrub, we're going to have problems as a species. But going back to the apparatus which ensures that these issues are kept in check, did you know that we as a species, we completely lack the innate capacity to fly? Yet utilizing our intellect, we have overcome that restriction in designing planes, helicopters, and even machines capable of spaceflight. If I say we as a species are hardly fit to fly, that doesn't mean all of these things cease to exist. Rather, it means you are attempting to dishonestly portray my admission. Now that's not playing fair, is it?
In other words, the key to this whole list of questions I gave, there's nothing magical about them. What it is you're using the theory that they claim to believe in to destroy the viewing frame.
Well, I need a little more than your pure assertion because, contrary to your title, I'm not seeing anything in your question to suggest you qualify as rational in any sense of the word. I require demonstration, not assertion.
Okay? Some common objections you might find to this is, well, we know what we perceive to be true based on two things. Two things I usually find people suggest. Scientific theory, and the other one is peer review. Other people, other perspectives, collectively agreeing that something is there, therefore it is. Okay? Now that might catch you off guard if you haven't thought about it. But in all honesty, that is not a good argument to return with. Because what you're doing is you're collectively saying, even though that everybody cannot see properly, everyone has the same random chance, random improbability in their brain, yet if we all collectively agree to it, it's there. It's not true. You could go to a group of schizophrenic kids and you could tell them that there is a purple giraffe in the room. Okay? And you could get everyone in that room with schizophrenia to agree with you. It doesn't mean it's real. And that's the issue with their brain. Their brain is suggesting things which aren't there. That's what I call collective objectivity. They think that because the collective people perceive something to be true, that the fatal flaw cannot be in all of them. But I say, and it's logically to say, that the viewpoints are all from the same corrupted perception or perspective.
And your evidence for the assertion that everyone, including yourself, has a psychological defect which prevents any obtaining of objective fact is what exactly? You have taken the admission that a brain can be faulty and twisted that to mean all brains are faulty. They must be faulty. Now apply that to any other world scenario and you begin to see the problem. Oh no, my desktop no longer works because of a faulty graphics card. Therefore, all desktops no longer work because they must also have faulty graphics cards. Oh no, this other person's worldview is faulty. Therefore, all worldviews, including my own, must be equally faulty. Do you get the point I'm trying to make here? This really isn't a lie you want to try on an atheist, as you'll be gutted and strung up before you have a chance to scream, "But I say so and my saying is fact." Meanwhile, back in reality, we can assess a perspective critically. It's not merely a case of everyone agreeing, it's a case of something being demonstrable. The results of science can be replicated, and that replication is demonstration. It is also what gives us the basis for scientific advancements, which once again act as testament to the method's effectiveness overall. Now, you can continue to assert that all of this is part of a mass hallucination, but I return once more to the demand that you supply evidence to support that assertion. I, meanwhile, will continue to operate as benefits the survival of our entire species. You are free to go off and play your little games of sophistry, but if you honestly believe this stands up to scrutiny, then it is you who has a faulty mind.
Okay? If we're using the human mind, a product of random chance, to observe reality, if I take two products of random chance, they still will not see reality correctly, even though they are both giving you their opinion. An example of this would be blind people. You ask a blind person what they see, and you hand them a mirror, and they'll be like, "You're an idiot, I don't see anything. Why are you handing me a mirror?" And yet you hand a person with normal sight a mirror, and you ask them, "What do you see?" And they'll tell you, "I see myself." Okay? The difference is, one has a deformity of their viewpoint. One cannot see the world for what it truly is. The other one can see the world for what it truly is. So when you hold up the mirror to them, they're able to tell you. But when you hold it up to a blind person, they're not able to tell you. In other words, if we're all seeing this objective reality through our own perspective, and our perspective has evolved from random chance, and there is no possible way to get a clear view of objective reality, despite the matter of people that look at you, because we could all be equally delusional if it's by random chance.
However, as critical atheists, we don't deal in could-bes. I mean, I could be black, 3 foot high, and a millionaire. Does that universal possibility, the fact that it could have been, and it still could be, make that the case? No, demonstration is required. You assert that because our minds are the product of chaos squared, that this cannot produce order, whilst every single equilibrium found throughout the universe proves you wrong. Again, your assertion is not an argument, so I'm currently waiting for you to validate anything you have asserted.
Okay, guys, you don't need to say those words and get the point across. You can find different ways to say the same argument, but the pretense in this, the reason why what I laid out works, is because the first saying, "Are you logical?" I'm asking their perspective. Okay, I'm saying, from your perspective, are you a logical person? Can things make sense congruently in your mind? And of course they'll say yes. If they said no, they're defeated themselves already. And if you say that, and then you get to the foundation, which is the next question, okay? First, the pretense, laying out the future of the argument, and then you're going to the objective theory that they believe in, which is random chance makes functional systems. And what they don't realize is that their objective theory disannuls their perspective.
Just asserting that again and again does not make it true. All you are doing right now is going in circles of assertion. How does noting the facts that at the root of order is chaos magically invalidate the structures we have developed over countless millennia to help us critically assess reality? Your argument is a non sequitur. The conclusion does not follow the premises which have been laid out. Premise 1. You hold to rational discourse. Premise 2. Your brain evolved. Conclusion 1. Your argument is invalid. That's what it amounts to, whilst there's nothing about premise 2 which contradicts premise 1. That is beyond the assertion of those forwarding the evolutionary argument against naturalism. Don't think I didn't recognise the poor state of this position early on. It's a very old and heavily refuted attempt at lying to atheists to try and delude them into sharing your beliefs. The reality is that the beliefs which are useful are the beliefs which are true. You can't run from predators if you blank them out, and you can't invent life support on a faulty understanding of anatomy. Then we have the fact that we create systems to act as fail-safes against faulty logic, ensuring that something is repeatable and thus demonstrable. Your assertion that everyone's logic is faulty all the time is just that, an assertion in dire need of evidence.
Okay? And you want to lay this out in a way where they don't hint on to what you're doing, and most people won't catch on to what you're doing, even after you told them all of this, because it's very, you got to take a step back from your current viewpoint in order to see what it is that naturalistic atheist actually is, and it's very delusional in many senses. That's why the Bible says, a fool says in his heart that there is no God. Okay? Because he's an idiot. Alright?
That's because a wise person says it aloud for all to hear. I love how you just acknowledge this argument as little more than a massive ad hom. Well, you're an atheist, my Bible says you're stupid, and I have this non sequitur which says the same, so nah. Are we supposed to be impressed by that which is effectively playground taunting involving masses of projection? Because I'm certainly not impressed.
So, there's not much to say about this after that. You've already efficiently ground it into a pulp. At this point, they really can't blame or point to anyone else for their sources of information, because those same people are operating with the same corrupted perspective and bias that they've evolved with.
That includes you, by the way, as you also evolved. You see, even if we couldn't explain the origins of logic, that wouldn't change the reality we're in, where we can apply said logic, and it's that very logic that has led science to an understanding of evolution at the core of biology. So if we can't trust our minds, being a collective "our" for the entire human species, you're in the same boat. Thus, we see an actual self-refuting position in what you have forwarded, not us.
Okay? And at this point, they'll start questioning their reality. They may not do it in front of you, and they may just call you an idiot, but in the back of their mind, they'll be chewing on this. Okay? They'll be thinking about it. They'll be like, do I really know that I know? Can I really believe and trust what those people are telling me? Can I really see the world for what it is? And the answer to that is no, they can't. Most of them will go on in their delusion, but the people that are willing to critically examine themselves won't be able to hold on to the purely naturalistic viewpoint of the world. And they may shift to more agnostic or a more supernatural way of viewing things. And then when it goes from that point on, then you could start laying down seeds of the gospel, of the truth of this world, of the reason why we are giving, to a degree, a logical brain. Because there is an absolute truth, okay? Because truth is not based on us or our perspective, but on Jesus Christ, who is the truth, and who is the life, and is the only way to God, okay? It's based on Him and His standard, and the Bible standard. And that is the frame of reference that we can know to be true.
And your evidence for that is what exactly? See, even if my position was wrong, that does not then mean we need to abandon logical discourse and reasoning and accept your superstition without due reason. You say we can know it to be true. Well, okay, demonstrate it to me. Stop wasting my time with such dishonest drivel and demonstrate the truth. You see, even after your various lies, the fact remains you fail to do what you seem rather egotistically to believe you have achieved. There's not a single point in your video which is doubt-inducing. Hence, I show it happily to all my channel, and I am not converting. If I converted, I would still show it to them, but I would no longer be an atheist. But the thing is, this is nothing new, and it's nothing substantial. All we in fact find is one willfully ignorant Christian failing at philosophy. That's hardly new.
Alright guys, so I hope this video can give you an arsenal of tools against the pawns of the devil. Because knowingly or unknowingly, these people are operating against God. And if you're not for God, you're with the devil. Alright guys, I hope this video blesses you. I want you all to have a good one.
Well, perhaps they'll view this video of yours and realize just how hopeless your religion actually is. But I doubt it. No, far more likely they'll warp reality, like yourself, to welcomely deceive themselves on the veracity of your position. But there are those out there watching from the sidelines who take an interest in honest discussion, free of such misguided belief without evidence like yourself. Either way, you've been taken down in your misplaced pride. There are a few things which I'd just like to add here at the end of this video. The first is a massive thank you to everyone who has ever donated to me via Patreon. Your fantastic support has given me the ability to keep this channel going, and I hope to continue producing content in the years to come. Secondly, I would like to thank anyone who has ever interacted with this channel. Your shares, likes and dislikes, as well as your comments of both approval and disapproval, have ensured constant feedback, allowing me to improve my work. Last of all, I would like to express my desire that you treat any of the people displayed throughout the video with respect. Whilst it is true that ideas do not demand respect, and there are many in fact which deserve reprehension, we must be careful on how we tackle said ideas in ensuring we are not simply targeting the person. In short, be the compassionate side of reason. So take care, and I'll see you next time.